What's up? It's Matt. We're back with a restaurant expert deep dive. This time we've got the guy that wrote this book. And by the way, I just want to flex on you all because I got a sticker that says autographed. And if you've got it and doesn't have that, I got you beat. We'll be back in 1 second. Mr. Bucher, you're in tornado warning mode right now, correct?
We are a little bit locked down at the moment.
Which is a weird coincidence because yesterday I went live with a fundraiser for restaurants in Kentucky. One of the guys that I know, restaurant was leveled. COVID didn't knock him out. The employment issues didn't knock him out, but a tornado destroyed his building. I think he said even his parents' building. We're up to, what are we up to now? $2,701.20 raised since like 6 o'clock last night. And what we're going to do is go Christmas shopping and make Christmas happen for some restaurant workers who don't have a job, don't have a lot of housing, and of course aren't really thinking about Christmas shopping. So I'm looking forward to that, but I hope you stay safe. So tell us about yourself. Tell us where you're at. Tell us who you are and all that good stuff.
All right. Well, Chef Shawn Bucher, my background is 25 years in food service. So I've been working I've worked in arenas, I've worked in hotels, I've worked in restaurants, I've worked in multi-units and independents. I've kind of done a lot of things. I most recently last year started a restaurant and was able to sell it this year, which was no small feat. And now I had the opportunity to go back to school. So I'm actually getting my PhD at Kansas State University right now and look forward to maybe teaching the up and coming generation some of the lessons that I wish I had known when I first started out.
And what I love about that is you're going to be going into academia and teaching current stuff. I actually taught 2 college classes 2 years ago, and it came from me making a challenge on Facebook that you don't need college to go into the marketing world. And they said, well, if you know so much, come in here and show us. And I went in there and the head of the university was like, oh, yeah, we're teaching stuff from like 20 years ago. And that's what I think a lot of people are being taught is the professors have been professors for 20 years. You've been entrepreneur, chef for the last 10, 20 years. And so you're going to bring a fresh perspective there.
That's the hope. I mean, it's something I've always wanted to do. I taught culinary school for a few years and really loved it. But at the time, my consulting business was kind of taking off. And so I had an opportunity to finally go back to school. And so here I am back in school and rocking and rolling here.
Don't get detention. So I'm calling for you there. So the book, which I didn't realize this till I pulled it out again. I got the autograph copy. So I don't know if everybody gets that. Am I special, or is that something you can get? Everybody gets when they buy it online.
Well, it looks like you're special. The funny thing is a lot of those autograph copies came from Barnes and Noble signings that I did initially. Okay. And so it looks like you got one of those. So you are lucky. You are special.
I thought you were going to say some guy over in Russia did it as a prank on Amazon. No. So what I want to talk about, what I like to do is go, we've already talked before, and I like to kind of circle back with people that, I tell my team, hey, these are people in our world that know what they're talking about. Cause I do talk to a lot of people in the restaurant space that are authors, that are podcasters, that are operators, that you talk to them once, you're like, yeah, I don't need to talk to them again. You weren't one of those. So I'm glad to have you back on. And what I really want to talk about is going into 2022, the book, Food People Management, standards, accountability, consistency, success. This year was a tough year for people to get employees for some restaurants. And what I found is that what I've talked about, and I want to hear your thoughts, is a lot of restaurants I know that didn't struggle are the people that had a lot of really good systems in place for their employees. They know what's expected of them. They are treated correctly. They're not overworked, but they have accountability, and accountability a lot of times is what makes a job a lot easier.
Oh, absolutely. I could talk about this for days. One of the things I think that's really outstanding about what it is that you do is that there's a lot of practicality to it. And I think that's what people need these days. We need to cut through the red tape and the fluff and the fill. And we just need to get down to the information that is critical, because things move so fast, especially in our world. where you're constantly having to adapt and change. And one of the last things you want to be doing is having to constantly be hiring new staff and train and coach and develop. And that was something that really, my crew, regardless whether it was the restaurant or the hotel or whatever it was always like my family. And they were people that I spent so much time with that I wanted to make sure they had the best experience possible so that I would have the best experience possible. And that's kind of why one of the reasons that I wrote the book was that I was being asked to go into kitchens a lot and kind of give a lot of the same advice over and over. And I thought, well, holy smokes, I might as well just write this down.
Yeah, here it is. Read this and do everything in there.
Essentially. And, I think going into 2022, my experience this last year with my restaurant, for example, we didn't necessarily want to start it, but I was in a situation where I had to. I didn't have a lot of other choices. And we were far enough down the path that we decided that, we were going to do it. And we were very fortunate in that we were able to kind of get out of it when we needed to. And they're still moving forward. They're still successful. They've been able to be profitable, and they've been able to kind of carry the torch forward. But one of the differences, I think, was, we said we were going to do things differently. We were going to hire staff full time. We were going to give them the hours that they needed. We were going to pay them. I wasn't even considering paying them less than $15 an hour, because I knew that was what people need to live. Yeah. And so a lot of those people that came in were used to making $9, $10 an hour and working 100 hours a week. And all of a sudden they had a much better quality of life by coming in, working for us, making just as much money and not getting burnt out. Yeah. So I think if you read any of the surveys of why people are leaving jobs, low pay is probably one of the top ones. And that was something that really made a big difference for us, because we had consistent employees who cared about their job and wanted to do what they needed to do to succeed. Therefore, the guests responded to that very positively, and we were able to keep a staff pretty consistently.
One thing you mentioned there too is it's not only the pay, it's the hours, it's the time, it's the burnout. We just released our vacation policy last week for next year moving on. Like I knew it was good, and I did it because it's how I want to be treated. And our phones have blown up. I mean, I've literally got 30 people that want to come work for us. And what we did was I looked at it and said, okay, what makes Matt Plapp happy? Matt Plapp is happy when every couple months I have a little break. I have a little breather because I run pretty hard. And also having flexibility. One of the reasons I'm an entrepreneur is I think I'm probably unemployable from a management standpoint anymore. It's been 20 plus years, but I like flexibility of, like, yesterday I left early. I left and went and watched my son work out for about 30 minutes. I wanted to talk to his trainer and get some advice on some stuff afterwards. And then I left and went back to work. I come in some days at certain hours, I leave certain times. There's a lot of places that don't have that. And what we came out with from our time, I said, I want to treat people how I want to be treated. Thanksgiving, I love that 4-day weekend. Now, granted, I'm not in the restaurant business, so that 4-day weekend's a little different to me in the office, but I love that. And so I kind of looked at it and I released our employee package. It's next year. Every 8 weeks, every employee has a mandatory 1 week paid off. And then so that's 5 weeks, and they have 2 weeks of their own time. And then we're closed Christmas and Thanksgiving. So now we're up to 9 weeks. And then every month we have a 3 or 4 day holiday. Like, for example, we couldn't find a holiday. I think it was August. Is it August, Max? I think it is. It's National Root Beer Day, Root Beer Float Day. And I looked at it and I said, let's just find reasons. I like long weekends. Who the hell doesn't like a long weekend? And that's one thing I know with us, why we'll be successful. I had people call me and go, am I reading this right? Like, yeah, they're like, dude, I want to come work for you. I'm like, I'm your competitor. Can I come work for you? But I think that that's the key element, is that maybe one of the reasons restaurateurs probably treat their staff a little harder is they don't do that themselves. Like, I talked to a restaurant the other day. It's like a year and a half, his first vacation. I'm like, dude, I'm all for hustle and grind. But if you're not happy, shit struggles.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And honestly, that was kind of where I was getting to with this latest venture with my recent restaurant. Was I had started with the idea that we would focus on breakfast and lunch, and we would try to be closed most weekends. We were in a very blue collar area. We felt like our customer base would respond positively to that, and they did. But at the same time, we recognized that there was a need, especially with the growing demand on digital and to go delivery, Grubhub, DoorDash. Saturdays were bread and butter. I mean, we were gangbusters on Saturday mornings. And so we started out with this thought that we're going to focus on employees first and we're going to have quality of life. But then we ran into some of those struggles of where, well, the business also has to succeed, because it's not only got to support them, it's got to support us as entrepreneurs. And when that happens, you're kind of at odds where it's like, well, but what trumps what? And so really what we did, instead of just coming out with this policy or this way of doing things, we came out and we said, guys, here's the predicament that we're in. We need to open up Saturday mornings. And part of the reason that we need to do this, and we explain the why for the need of sales, and every single one of them understood, and almost everyone volunteered to work Saturdays. We'd offer overtime a lot of times, and they were happy to do it, happy to get that, because they knew it wasn't going to last forever, and they knew they weren't always going to get that. So you might as well jump at the chance and get it when you can. But I think the difference was, instead of saying, you will do this, and treating them like they owed us something, it became a collaborative effort. And all of a sudden it was empowering to them, where they'd say, whoa, you're really interested in our feedback. You know what? We understand. You've explained the why. We understand why this needs to happen. Therefore, we're willing to do it. And we'll sacrifice a little bit, even though initially we knew this wasn't going to be part of the deal. But because we understand the why, and because we've been a part of it, we're willing to do that. We're willing to help you guys out.
That's awesome. And that's a delicate balance. I'm fortunate. We're an office company, so we don't have nights and we don't have early mornings, and there's nobody knocking on our door on the weekends for the most part. So it's an easier place to come from than the restaurants. But there is also that temptation. I used to work in retail. I owned a boat dealership for 8-9 years, and we were open 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and then Sundays we were like noon to 9. And to me, I was like, hey, there's opportunity every day because our competitors are closed, and that's also a struggle in the restaurant business. Do we open Saturdays? Do we open Sundays? Are we open for breakfast 5, 6, 7 days a week, or for lunch, dinner?
Yeah, I mean, that is the challenge, is that you have to have the sales to sustain your company. You might want to provide, I mean, it'd be great if you could provide everybody 8 to 5, 8 to 4, 9 to 5, whatever, 4-day weeks. That would be great. But the reality is you kind of have to know what your customer base is and what they're looking for, and you have to schedule around that. But that's not to say that you can't find people that don't prefer that. A lot of the people that had worked with us actually had other night jobs, and they wanted a consistent day job, but they also wanted to be able to go out and moonlight a couple nights out of the week. And so they were ready to go. Friday we were rocking. Saturday morning we were rocking. But you know what? As soon as they got done with us, they'd go rock it out for somebody else Friday and Saturday, because not only did they probably need the income, but they wanted it. They wanted the experience, and they wanted to do that. So one thing I learned from that whole escapade was basically that you don't have a choice to tell people what they want. You need to just listen to what they tell you they want. You can then kind of schedule around that. But I'm a big proponent in that you will find the talent that you need, and you'll be able to provide opportunities for them if you're willing to be collaborative, and you're willing to listen, and you're willing to find out what their needs and their wants and their desires are, and try to create a roadmap for them that works for them, but then also works for you.
Yeah. And the big thing you're talking about there is collaboration, is that it's not, you're going to do this, we're going to do this. Like you mentioned, when you guys brought up Saturdays, it was, hey, here's the opportunity. The business needs it from a sales standpoint. How can we make it happen? And, people respond a lot differently when you open up for conversation versus close. Like they say, when you're at a networking event, if 2 people are standing like this face to face, somebody's not going to walk up to the side. But if 2 people are side by side walking, somebody's going to walk up and enter the conversation. I think that's what you've done, is you're opening up and you're telling your employees that, hey, this is a team effort. This isn't just me telling you what we got to do. It's getting your feedback and how to make it happen.
Well, I think you really touched on it earlier, that, you treat people the way you want to be treated. And I think the golden rule goes a long ways. That's not common in the restaurant world. It's not the way things have been traditionally done. And so that's where I think that owners, operators, managers, we need to think things differently, because obviously there's a war on talent right now. People are being poached from one another, and people are leaving for 50 cents more an hour or whatever it might be. But the reality is that when you create relationships with people and people understand the why, and they're treated like equals, or they're treated like partners even, that's when things change, and you don't have to worry so much about them going across the street for another quarter an hour. There's a lot more give and take, and it's much more collaborative, and it's a real synergistic effort versus a dictatorship, which is unfortunate that a lot of times people tend to operate in that way.
Yeah. So end of the year is upon us. For whatever reason, people don't. I typically readjust my goals and my game plans every month. I'm not a New Year's resolution guy, but everybody is, and a lot of people are looking at 2022 budgets and game plan and what they want to do. What are a couple things that you would suggest to operators? Like, hey, you're going into the next year. You're going to look at your finances, your profit and loss, your budgets. What about your human capital? What are some things they should be looking at that, hey, I need to do this in 2022 to maybe be in a better place the next 12 months?
Well, regardless of whether it's end of year goals, end of month goals, I think one of the number one things that you can do for your people in general always is develop them. Whether that is developing them to attain higher positions within your organization, or develop them to potentially work themselves out of a job. Some of the best team members and people that I've worked with over the years are people that didn't necessarily ever even want to be in the restaurant industry, or knew that they wouldn't be in the restaurant industry forever. It was a means to an end. They were doing it because they had another end goal, and this was one of the smaller goals that was going to help them get there in the interim. And I think finding ways to motivate those individuals is different than trying to find ways to motivate people who are going to make a career out of it. So you really have to understand the difference in motivation. Someone might be motivated by time off. Another person might be motivated by money. One person might be motivated by childcare expenses, while another one might be motivated by a vacation day or two. You kind of have to sit down with everybody individually and figure out what is it that you want, and how can I help you get there? And that's something I've done with all the teams I've ever been a part of, that I've had the pleasure of working as a leader with them, is trying to facilitate what is it that you want and how can I help you get there? Because if I do that, you will then in turn help me get what I want, which is running, a decent organization. So if I could say anything, it would be find ways to develop people, whether it's in your organization or helping them develop outside of their organization.
Yeah, it's yesterday. I just actually 2 days ago. I don't know if you know who Grant Cardone is, but I've been watching his Undercover Billionaire show, which is pretty fun to watch. But I was on his website because I appreciate there's some things with him. He's pretty hard charging, but there's some things I appreciate with him from his advice and his motivation. And I've read some of his books. And so I went online and bought one of his courses because one of my employees made a comment the other day. I said, "What do you want to do?" I had two of them in a room. It was actually yesterday morning. I said, "What do you want to make next year?" The one said 71,000. That number, because I had written up this number. I want to make $71,000. I said, "How are you going to do it?" And he just looked at me. "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Bro, if I left Kentucky to go to Myrtle Beach before cell phones, I had to get on MapQuest and look, where do I turn left? Where do I turn right? You've got to know what gets you to that goal, whether it's an income goal or a vacation goal, or I want to be a manager of the restaurant." And so I actually had went on, ironically, before that and bought one of his courses and said, "Hey, I'm going to buy this course. I'm going to go in here and look, and I'm going to figure out which modules, which trainings different employees in my company need." Because some people need motivation, some need goal setting, some need sales skills. I mean, hell, the number of restaurants who need to put their servers through Grant Cardone's closer school, they might think, oh, they're not closing car deals. They should be closing appetizers and desserts and getting people's data for the next visit. But like you said, you've got to know what they want to accomplish and then arm them with the tools, because the two biggest things I screwed up on in my 20s, it didn't hit me to my early 30s. I'm 45 now. I didn't take educational courses for my career enough, and I didn't read enough. Now I read pretty much every day, and I take anywhere from 5 to 6 courses a year, and I go to a mastermind every 3 months, and I have a private coach, and that's helped develop me, and I'm trying to do the same for my employees.
That's incredible. Well, and I think That's where you know your audience, you know your employees well enough to know what it is that they want, and you can work backwards from that. I think too many times operators, we see people as cogs and we don't invest in them enough. And because we don't invest in them enough, they don't invest in us. They don't feel the same kind of I don't know. They're not as invested in our business, and they shouldn't be, because it's not their business.
Yep.
But if you can find a way to getting them invested in themselves and seeing how doing what you need helps them help themselves, it's the WIFM. What's in it for me? Everybody's interested in that. And if you can get people thinking along those lines and saying, hey, if I can increase my sales, oh wow, my ticket averages go up and my tips go up. This is crazy. Well, yeah. But a lot of times we don't take the time to do that. We're in constant reaction mode instead of proaction mode, where we're going to think about it and determine an action plan and execute it. No, we're just going to wait till the fire comes up, and then we're going to search around for the fire extinguisher.
Yeah.
If we can be more proactive than reactive, that gives us time. That gives us the space and the mind power to actually think through and create these goals for our team members.
Yeah, I had a restaurant the other day that was talking about it. We want to increase our sales, but we're too busy from a standpoint of these days and these times and with employees. And I said, well, how many desserts do you sell a week? And he's like, oh man, basically none. I said, so what have you done to invest in your team to get them excited about desserts? I said, because your desserts are pre-made. You don't have any power. Like, you literally, it's already sliced. It's on a tray. You don't have to, there's no ticket time. And he's like, nothing. I said, dude, put something in place, figure out. Because if you got 1,000 covers coming in a week and 200 people buy a pie that's got $5 of margin baked into it, do the math. In 52 years, you just got enough money to pay for a better manager or give yourself a raise or give all your employees a bonus. I said, the problem is you're assuming these desserts are going to just walk off the menu into people's plates. I said, it's the person at the table, and you can't blame them for not selling them. They've never had sales training. They're a server. No restaurant like you has ever invested in teaching them the art of communicating and getting people excited.
Well, and that's the one thing that I'm a big proponent of culinary education. I always have been. Obviously, I taught culinary school, but I think culinary education and in general, more back of the house, is really lacking in business skills or soft skills, management skills. And you read a lot of the studies and things out there, and they feel the same way, that management nowadays, you have to have a lot of these HR skills, and you have to have a lot of these sales skills, especially if you're going to be in the front of the house. And I think if you can take yourself out of yourself a lot of times, where, well, the restaurant business is what it is, and the challenges are what they are, and we just have to roll with it. No, think about it differently. Think of your business as a business, and learn business skills, learn marketing, learn accounting, learn some of these, communication efforts, because that in turn, because this is a business and those are business principles, this will help your business succeed. You can still be an artist. You can still create incredible dishes, and you can still be, artsy and do all the things you need to do, especially if guests are responding positively to that. But you don't always have to be, or that's not always what's needed, because once you train and coach and show someone how to do that, and they're going to replicate it 10, 12, a dozen times a night, then start working on something else. Work on, finding ways to improve your quality without compromising. There's a lot of things that people just don't want to focus on. They know how to do one thing and they're good at it, so they focus on it. But they don't realize that by not focusing on all these other ancillary things going on around them, that they end up losing their shirt. And so that's another thing I think that a lot of people could really focus on is, learn your business and look at it as a business. But like you said, front of the house, especially, they need to become salesmen. Put them through real estate courses, put them through whatever, because those principles are the same and they're very transferable.
It reminds, I don't know if you're a basketball fan or not, but I'm a Chicago Bulls guy. And from the 90s, I'll never forget when Dennis Rodman, he was always a rebounder, but then Scottie Pippen had a contract issue, and now Dennis is shooting 3-pointers and making them. And he had made a joke. He's like, oh, my team needed me to shoot 3-pointers. I learned how to shoot 3-pointers. He's a pro basketball player, probably kind of knew, but he hadn't done it in forever. And so it's the same way. Like, everybody in your restaurant, they have certain things. Like, Dennis loved rebounding. Hey, Dennis, guess what? We need you to shoot the ball now because our big score is gone. Well, it's the same thing, is that a lot of restaurants are so focused on, I've got to get new customers. I got to get this. I'm like, no, you need to get two things, in my opinion. If you want to start from the basics, the data of your current customers, and then a strategy to get your current customers to spend more money when they're in house. That doesn't take you a whole lot of time. Alcohol, desserts, appetizers are 3 items.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you bring up a good point, because that's something I've always believed in, is the need for cross training and the need for everybody to know every position. And that was something that, I really focused on my last concept. Was I wanted everybody to know front, back, side, every single person in that restaurant was going to do dishes at some point. Every single person was going to make burritos at some point. Every single person was going to put orders away, receive orders, work the cash register. I mean, because a lot of times, if someone gets hurt, or, God forbid, something happens that isn't supposed to happen, which ends up happening on a daily basis anyway, you've got to hedge your bets, and you've got to have people cross-trained in those ways. I mean, I'd love it when I'd walk into the restaurant, and a lot of times I'd see my kitchen manager answering the phone, and I'd see like our best cashier back there making burritos. And I loved seeing that, because it made me feel a sense of empowerment that I could step out and I could go build sales and relationships with people and start to bring people in, because I knew operations were sound. And I know a lot of operators don't feel like they can step out because their operations aren't sound. Well, the only way you get your operations consistent and sound is by cross-training your people and then empowering them to do what they need to do. You hire people for certain reasons. You hire personality, you train skill, whatever your concept is. You want to make sure that you get the right people in the right places, but then you have to trust them enough to let them succeed. And I think a lot of times they'll surprise you. But I've found that one of the most empowering things you can do for your team is cross-training them, so that they feel a sense of ownership in the concept, but then also a sense of like, oh, well, they're not going to get rid of me because I know every position. Well, the reality is because everyone knows every position, it makes everybody much more expendable. But at the same time, you don't want to do that, because it takes a lot of time and effort to get them to that point. So it's kind of this win-win situation where your employees feel a little more secure because of that. But at the same time, you have more power to let people go if you need to.
You're protected a little. And also it lets them appreciate what the other parts are doing. When you know that, hey, I put this special order, like on my team, when the sales department or the marketing department alters something and we see how it screws up our automation, it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to quit altering that. I'm just going to stick to what we do. Well, cool. I appreciate your time. I appreciate it. If you guys haven't gotten it yet, Food People Management, I'm going to guess it's available on ShawnBucher.com.
It's actually the best places to get it are Barnes & Noble or Amazon.
Okay, Barnes & Noble or Amazon. And that's how they can reach out to. And last but not least, americasbestrestaurants.live/donate. We are building a fund. We're up to about $3,000 right now to help restaurant operators, employees, families displaced in the tornadoes hit in Western Kentucky. We're up to, like I said, $3,000. I'm personally, with my wife and kids, going to go buy the stuff that these families need, because they've lost their job, they've lost their housing, and the last thing on their mind is Christmas shopping, even though they want to have Christmas for their kids in a week and a half. So if you're watching this from anywhere, americasbestrestaurants.live/donate, 100% of the proceeds will go to people in need, guaranteed. So Shawn, I appreciate it. Appreciate you being on, and have a great holiday season.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. It's a great opportunity to be here with you. I love what you're doing. You guys are rock stars.
Cool. I appreciate it. And look forward to coming to class one day.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I still got a little ways ahead of me, but we'll see. It's not I have a feeling it's not going to be as long as I think it is at this point.
Cool. Well, hey, have a good holiday. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.